Hi, Mucha. You're on mute.
I have been on mute this whole time. Oh my goodness, I can't believe that. All right, so let's start all over again. Let's start all over again. Before I introduce Lucy, let me start all over again. So, November is a time when many begin their planning for the following year. We analyze the year that was, reflecting on goals set at the start of the year. We celebrate the milestones reached and goals achieved and assess the goals that we've missed, determined to understand why we failed to achieve them. A critical part of understanding our progress is uncovering how we may be holding ourselves back and implementing strategies to propel ourselves forward. Welcome to the 22nd edition of the EQ Lunch and Learn series. And our theme today is getting out of your way, strategies for overcoming procrastination, imposter syndrome, and self doubt. As I was saying when I was on mute, I have three amazing guests with me today. And the first is Lucy, Lucy Muthui, a media specialist with experience spanning over a decade. Lucy is an ICT graduate who's turned her passion for TV and media into a career in content acquisition, distribution, and production. She has created award winning channels for pay TV and now helps content creators showcase their work in front of investors, broadcasters, and fellow industry players worldwide through her expertise in content distribution. You're very welcome, Lucy. Lucy currently works at Ubongo International as a broadcast manager, where she oversees the distribution of their content globally. Her aspiration is to make the beautiful stories of Africa reach every corner of the world. If you'd like to connect more with Lucy beyond this, you can catch her on LinkedIn. Lucy, hi, welcome to our session today.
Hi, Mucha. Thank you so much for having me, and looking forward to engaging with you and the panelists. And I'm really excited to be here.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Lucy. I also have with me today Mwindi Kimanzi. So I'm going to bring Mwindi on. Mwindi Kimanzi is a Kenyan writer, marketer, and leader. His background spans close to a decade in the advertising and marketing industry. He's worked for top advertising and marketing agencies and key brands on different marketing campaigns, more notably as the lead copywriter in the KCB Bank Need Cash Usitense campaign. He's the author of three books: No Valentine's, Day 365, Finding My Way in Every Run, and The Meetup, his newest book project. And we're looking forward to hearing more from him today. He is a mental health advocate through running and exercise. He is passionate about telling the African story and positively impacting people's lives through leadership. Wendy, it's so great to have you online today. Good afternoon.
Afternoon. That's quite an elaborate introduction. Thank you so much. Happy to be here and looking forward to learn and have fun. Yeah.
Fantastic. We plan to do that indeed. Last but not least, I have Joanne. Joanne Sigu is an HR expert with over 10 years experience. Given another chance, Joanne says she would pick the very same profession. The sky is no limit, and her dreams are real as her drive and passion for her work. She loves empowering people to be better than they previously are. She's given us a very short bio. Joanne, it's great to have you. Good afternoon or good morning. I think it's morning for you. Welcome to our session today.
Thanks, Mocha. It's such a great day and a great opportunity to be here on such an early day. Thanks for the elaborate intro. The rest, I believe we can catch up with anyone else who want to know me. Thanks.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you. Thank you very much for joining my panelists. I'm really looking forward to the conversation that we are going to have today. This is a really important topic as we look back on the year that was. It's coming to a close and reflect on the year to come and start making plans for what is coming up ahead. So, my first question, I usually like to ask the similar question to everyone as we kick off. What are some of the ways, and I want to give it a bit of a twist and allow me to do so, my panelists. I hope I don't catch you too off guard. But what are some of the ways that you have, in your experience, noted that you were possibly standing in your way? So just looking back in your experience as you reflect on some of the things you've tried to achieve, whether it's reflecting on the goals you'd set for yourself and the milestones you failed to achieve, what are some of the ways you've noticed that we can get in our own way as we try to move forward? Wendy, I want to say gentlemen first and start with you before I come to the ladies. Yeah, what are some of the ways that we get in our own way, block our own progress forward? Wendy.
Right. I think one of the ways which seems a bit counterintuitive is setting too high of ambitions. You know, you have such big goals, uh, and you want to like take them on all at once. So I found that to be a challenge to myself, as well as I've seen, you find somebody who, let's say, for instance, joins the gym, and you really want to do everything, but that works against you. There's wisdom in breaking them down to achievable tasks. um, you're still going to achieve the big goal, but how you tackle it, the wisdom around that helps you to achieve the goal. Yeah.
Mm. That's really, really critical, Mindy, and I've noted that that can really be a barrier when we set goals that aren't, they're not really smart, so they're not realistic. It's not something that we can actually tangibly achieve, or perhaps we set goals and we haven't actually just broken it down to the actual steps that need to be taken to achieve that goal. Yeah, I agree with you. So goal setting or a failure to set goals that are smart can be something that blocks our progress. Lucy, can I come to you? What would you say are some of the ways that we get in our own way as we're moving forward?
I'll point out two things that I see myself doing sometimes, and also people around me. Comparison. So I know
Mm,
what I want, I know what works well for me, but you're tempted to look on the side and see this person is better than me in this way. So you try to, match up to that, and not focusing on, if it's a strength that you have, build on it, or it is a weakness that you have, how do you also build on it to match up to your level of strength. So that's one of the uh, hindrances or setbacks that I see us and myself sometimes, and people around me putting themselves in that situation. And the other thing is lack of setting goals, that has been said. And when you set goals, you have to also be in aligned with your own personal goals, career goals. So when you don't set goals and match up as to what you want to achieve, for instance, if you had purpose to finish your masters this year, and what are the plans that you did, so small achievable goals, because those are some of the things that pull you back when you don't know how you're going to achieve the big goal through smaller steps. And lack of that self understanding of yourself, that if I'm able to maybe sit down for 2 hours and study, I'll be able to achieve that ultimate goal at the end of the year or at the end of 2 years. So for me, those are the two big uh, hindrances that I see myself, and as a way I can improve.
I like that. Thank you very much for sharing, Lucy. And I'm just reflecting on what you said about this idea of comparing ourselves. I think that's a real serious killer of dreams, right? We compare ourselves to others, and I think that's something that really does get in our way. And you're right. When it comes to our goals, not setting them, really just not setting clear goals, not being very clear about what we're trying to achieve and how is critical. Thank you. Thank you very much, Lucy. Joanne, over to you. What have you seen, or some of the ways that you've maybe really blocked your progress forward?
For me, the biggest blocker has been self-doubt. Self-doubt in that you feel that, okay, I don't think I'm ready. So you keep on just saying, am I ready? Am I not ready? And you look for every excuse that will prove to you you're not ready, as opposed to looking for every excuse that'll tell you just do it. And yeah, I think that's just because I'm too comfortable with my routine and what I'm doing on a day to day basis. So when you become too comfortable, you're like, why should I add another weight to what I'm already handling? So I'd say for me, the biggest is self doubt, just not being too sure that you can do it. And I remember Muchi some time back you taught us like for a woman to do anything, you have to tick the box almost 99%. As opposed to a man, all he needs is just one thing out of that to be sure that they can do it. So it's something I'm really working on because everyone else can tell you, John, why don't you do this? Why don't you do this? Everyone can see your potential other than you. So for me, it's self doubt, the biggest obstacle. Yeah, is me actually.
Wow. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And you know, all too often that is our reality, that the biggest blocker to achieving our goals is ourselves, right? It's not anything else. It's not anything outside of ourselves. And I think self-doubt is a really big one. As you were talking, I was just reflecting on this idea of confirmation bias. Confirmation bias is defined as the tendency to search for, interpret, favor, and recall information in a way that confirms or supports one's prior beliefs or values. And you know what you said, Joanne, that's just really powerful for us to reflect on is the idea that when you think you can't, you actually keep looking for things that confirm that you can't, rather than looking for things that confirm, excuse me, that you can. So yes, allowing self-doubt. And Kudzai, great to have you online, Tete. Welcome to the session. Indeed, allowing imposter syndrome to limit you. Excuse me. So today we're going to be exploring further how we can ensure that we don't stand in our own way. As you reflect on 2022 and plan for 2023, how do you make sure that you come out the gate strong? Joanne, let me stay with you and ask my next question. Organizations always have goals and plans for a financial year. What are some of the ways that they ensure that these goals are followed to the letter so that we can learn some lessons about how organizations do it?
Okay. So when it comes to organization, it's quite interesting that I'm sure most people by now you potentially know what your goals for next year, for example, are, and most of you are already focused or are aligned. However, for you to stay focused and stay and ensure that you're able to achieve the goals, it goes back to if we have managers on this call, are those goals, do you have a buy-in from the employees? Because what are you achieving if you don't have your employees in it? Because most of the time you find that goals may be set top up, top down, but actually for your goals to be able to be achieved, you need them set bottom up because more than anything, your manager needs you. The manager needs the team to achieve these goals. And if there's no buy-in from these goals, then it's like already a sinking ship. And so it's very important just to ensure that um, the goals are followed to the latter. But question is, do they understand what the goals are? Do you have a buy-in from the employees when it comes to the goals? And also, do you have feedback? Yeah, feedback from the employees on the goals that have already been set. Are these goals achievable, or is it a sinking ship, or a sinking ship whereby we are here to please investors, but when actual sense, when you look back, you're like, okay, this is what the investors want, but I think this is way too far-fetched. So is someone raising an alarm like, guys, yes, we understand that our investors want this, but also we as an organization, what are we capable of achieving? What is our historical data telling us? Do we have feedback from the employees whereby they can say, I feel last year we're able to achieve this. So maybe if you're to push ourselves further, this is how much we can be able to get based on performance from the previous year or historical events or something that may have occurred or is about to occur that potentially will enable the organization to achieve its goals. And also, when we have the goals, do we have set deadlines? Deadlines that would enable us to know where we are at, where we need to be it on a quarterly basis? Do we have a time frame as to how long are we going to take to be able to achieve the goal that we have? Is it very specific? Is it achievable? Are the goals smart goals that can be able to be measured and people can take ownership? And when it comes to goals, what I've seen work, especially with my experience, is having goals from the organization. Can every individual, including the cook, understand what are the goals for the company for that year? And once they know what the company is as a department, do you understand what you need to achieve as a whole? As an individual, do you understand what your goals towards the company are? And it doesn't end at individual goals towards the company, but do you see yourself as an individual having a future with that company with the individual goal you've set? Because you can have individual goal, but you're like, shit, I don't think I'm going to be here in the next 1 year. So you need to make it very specific. Okay, these are the individual goals I need to achieve for such and such a company. But do I see myself in this? Yeah, because remember, end of day, there's a paycheck that is coming, and you have your individual goals as well as a person that you need to achieve. So you need to see, are these individual goals aligned towards my personal ambition? Be selfish. I say it's a selfish way of looking at it, but if you're not seeing yourself in the future of that company, chances are end of year you'll have excuses to give as to why you never achieved that. And then when it comes to the goals themselves, assuming it's an organization, do you recognize some of the wins in between? Do you have conversations during your town hall? Do you communicate on the progress? Like, guys, I think we've done so well this quarter. What about we push ourselves further? And are we able also to see what are potential obstacles? Are we still aligned as to what we agreed? Or is there potential of us not achieving a goal mainly because we feel there was an obstacle? Let's say the elections, we thought it would take 2 3 months and we're back and now it's stretching over. How early do we identify some of those things? And for the wins, how well do we recognize the small and the big wins? And remember, still it goes back to you as an individual. How do the wins make you feel? Are you happy? Are you enthusiastic? Do they reflect to your individual goals? Maybe you had a goal that by this time I need to have saved this much to buy a car. Are you still on track with that? And if not, what are you planning to change about it? And then when it comes to the company, lastly, I would say what of the professional development? What are the skills that the company needs to build within the team members to ensure that these goals are achieved? Because maybe you say this year we need to introduce coaching. Question is, are your managers equipped to do the coaching? And if not, what is the gap? And what needs to be done for that gap to be filled? As an individual, you want to be a manager, but you still have your diploma. Really? You need to work something on that. Like, I want to be a manager. What does it take for me to be a manager? Do I need to go back to school? Do I need to get a mentor to help me get there? Because there are many routes to get in there, but also you need to be well focused. So that would be like, for me, how I look at it holistically is that know what the company goals are, know what the departmental goals, but the most important one, your individual goals,
Yeah.
both for the organization and how it reflects back to your individual work and your individual ambition. As in, let it have a meaning out of it, because that's the only way you're going to achieve it. Because you're like, I need this because I have this that is waiting for me, or I need to grow to this level by this
Mm,
time.
mm,
Yeah, so
mm.
that's it, Mucha.
Fantastic. Wow. I think you've given us so much insight in what you've shared. And, the thing that really struck me, Joanne, was what you talked about, this idea of being clear about your own personal why. And the fact that sometimes that can be the blocker, right? Sometimes the reason why we're failing to achieve the organizational goals that have been set for us is because we don't see our why and how our why is intertwined with the organizational goal. So I really like what you said, that have clarity on your own personal goal and how your own personal goal is aligned to the organization so that you can
Mhm.
continue moving forward towards the organizational goal. So thank you very much for sharing. The question I'm asking all of you who are tuned in is, what is your biggest blocker? How do you stand in your own way? And even as I engage with my panel on the conversation we're having, feel free to tell us in the comments, how do you block your own get in your own way? I'm looking forward to hearing that. Kudzai had earlier shared, and I did say, welcome to the session, allowing imposter syndrome. Anne says she's happy to be here, and her biggest blocker is self sabotage and self doubt. The question is, what is your biggest blocker? Please do share in the comments. Let me continue the conversation with the panel. Lucy, let me come to you. What are some of the ways that one can offer a clear understanding of where they either met, fell short, or exceeded their planned goals? So, how can I gain that clarity? Because, I'm imagining that it doesn't make sense for me to set goals for the next year if I'm not really clear on what it is that I have done for this current year. Lucy, can you help us with that?
I think the biggest word here is accountability to yourself and to either your company or to someone that or a mentor who holds you accountable. So once you have that accountability, you'll know that I have set to uh, probably make this amount of money through sales, or eat healthy, or whichever goal that you set for a particular time. So for me, I would say once you understand what you want to achieve, and you have a mentor or someone who holds you accountable, because sometimes we fall short, but we have a mantra and we say fail fast and fail forward. So you fail, but then you pick yourself up, dust yourself, and learn from it, and you learn from it, and take the next steps as to how to achieve your goals. So I would say look for an accountability partner for whatever that you want to achieve. And as you set your goals, you be realistic. As you said, the SMART goals, you be realistic, go step by step and see. There are some things that can go long term, and you can re-strategize. Probably you didn't plan for it better. You can re-strategize and see what then can work better. So also being teachable, because you may not be well versed with everything, but I love putting myself in a moment or in situations that I can also sit back and listen and be teachable. And yeah, embracing life as it is sometimes, just being soft, and understanding your environment, learning from other people. Yeah, so that's how I would put things into perspective.
Fantastic. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much for sharing. Each time one of you shares, I'm getting some wisdom dropped. And I really like what you said about accountability. I think that's one of the most critical parts of us being able to achieve our goals, being accountable to somebody else. And one of the ways that we block ourselves from achieving that success is not setting up those accountability structures, right? So having someone that you're accountable to. I have a friend of mine who sells insurance, and I remember her sharing an example of how she started the year and she approached one of the top salespeople in the company. And she said to her, I want to be able to achieve like you. I want you to be my mentor. Can you please be my mentor? And can you hold me accountable? And so this a lady as well said to her, okay, I'm happy to work with you, but are you really serious, right? And my friend says, I told her I'm very serious. So she said, okay, let's work together. I'm happy to be your mentor. But what I'd like us to do is I'd like us to set up a reward and penalty scenario where if you achieve certain milestones, we reward. And if you fail to achieve the milestones we agree on, there's a penalty. So what they did was set a target for the year, broke it down into a monthly target. And on a monthly basis, the idea was to review. And her mentor, this lady, was going to hold her accountable, right? So she said at the end of the first month, she had not achieved the goal. And the penalty was 10,000 shillings, right? So she said at the end of the month, she had to pay 10,000 shillings to this lady, her mentor. And she's like, this lady doesn't even need my money, but she says she pays it. So she says that the following week, her mentor, this lady, comes into the office with a new handbag and a pair of shoes and proceeds to tell my friend, hey, look at how smart I'm dressed with your money. And she says she really rubbed it in that I'm wearing your money. Thank you so much. I'm looking so good in your money. My friend declared that she would never fail to meet the goal because she refused to buy any more handbags. And she says for the rest of the year, she was able to meet that target. I think accountability is so critical. And one of the ways that we definitely hold ourselves back, one of the ways that we don't achieve our goals is because we don't set up those structures. We don't have anyone that we're accountable to. And so if I miss my goal, it's okay. It's not a big deal. So I really like that. Thank you very much. While this dream says that our biggest blocker has to be imposter syndrome, I know we had an EQ Lunch and Learn dedicated to imposter syndrome some time last year because this is something that is a challenge for many of us. So please continue to share what your biggest blocker is. We're talking about how we as individuals sometimes stand in our own way. If you've just joined us, welcome to this edition of the EQ Lunch and Learn. We're talking about getting out of your way, and we are going to explore some strategies. Muindi, let me come to you. How can we monitor progress towards set goals? So the two ladies have talked about, and you also mentioned earlier, Muindi, this idea that we need to set smart goals. So how do we monitor our progress towards achieving these goals?
All right. I'm loving the conversation. I'm learning. I'm loving what I'm learning from the other panelists as well. So how can you monitor set goals? I think the first thing, like we talked about, was the goals being smart goals, um, and having a plan around that. One of the things I like to say is that consistency actually beats self-doubt. You know, think about
Mm,
uh, think about forgetting his name. This inventor who created the bulb, the light bulb. You know,
Edison.
it said, sorry.
Thomas Edison, I think. I think
Yes,
Thomas
yes,
Edison.
yes. Yes, it is. Uh, it said he tried it for 1,000 times. I don't know how true that
Mm,
is, but the emphasis was he really did try it several times. So I believe it's in that consistency that we move from the point of self-doubt to being confident in what we are doing. Um,
mm,
and how one of the ways to actually look at progress is ask yourself on a daily basis what one thing have you done that has pushed you forward in achieving that goal. Some days you're lucky to put in a lot of work. Some days it's just probably just a small significant thing that you did that helps you to move forward. It could be, let's say you're thinking of setting up a business. Through the process of setting up the business, it could be that one day you just do the name search. Just look at the name search. Is there a name like this out there? And that's it. That's progress. Another day you'll probably put in hours into it, but ask yourself on a daily basis, what have you achieved towards the completion of that goal? And as you remain consistent in that, you'll find that you are achieving much greater things than you hoped to achieve on the onset. It's important that we look at small steps as growth. Yesterday I saw a very random video on somebody's status. this gentleman was saying that in his house, as long as the kids turn 6 years old, they have to read 20 pages a day. Doesn't matter whether it's a holiday, doesn't matter whether it's, I don't know. And I was like, I wanna borrow that, maybe start off with few pages. uh but think about it. This child who's able to read 20 pages a day, when you look at it in an year, how many books they've read. If they say in an year I read 10 books, you'll be like, how? But when it's broken down to a small task of just read 10 pages a day, that consistency will build into this great achievement that was previously uh, unthinkable. So I think that to track your progress. um, and Lucy talked about accountability also. uh, the fact that you set yourself up for accountability. So if you say you're going to do something, who's holding you accountable? Who's asking you the questions of, you said you'll do this, how far are you with this? Or like through my journey of book writing, one of the things I do is I express my targets to my editor. So they're able to actually follow through and say, I expected the first draft by this time. Where is it? That way it's easy for me to stay on track, as opposed to you set the goal, you are only accountable to yourself, and it's easy to cheat on that, as opposed to when you have somebody, like following through with you with that. Yeah, I think those are two ways you can track progress.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I mean, again, accountability is coming up here as a critical one. So I think we can all conclude that in order to get out of your way, you actually need help, right? You need support. And part of that help and support is the accountability structures that you set up. I really like what you said, Wendy, about expressing milestones to your editor, right? So this is someone who then is holding you accountable. Hey, where is this chapter that you have indicated? And I really love what you said. Important to see small steps as growth. Consistency beats everything else. A person who just consistently does something on a daily basis is going to get far further than anyone else. And so, thank you very much for sharing those amazing insights. I think if you've just joined us, welcome. We're having a fabulous conversation. Our theme today is getting out of your way, strategies for overcoming procrastination, imposter syndrome, and self doubt. And we're talking about this because we're coming to the end of the year. And I know when we're at the end of the year, many of us are setting goals for 2023. And so we need to be sure that we are not the ones holding ourselves back. Wendy, I want to stay with you and I want us to start tackling or dismantling some of these barriers that we've already started talking about. So the question was, what are some of the blockers? And today our focus is on three key blockers: the blocker of self-doubt, the blocker of procrastination, and the blocker of imposter syndrome. So if I start with you, Wendy, and we talk about self-doubt. Self-doubt has proven to be a cancer in so many people, so many young people, and young and old, to be honest. As a young person yourself, what are some of the ways that you've overcome your very own doubts? I'm just casting my mind back to the first book you wrote. How did you overcome some of the doubts that you that could have crippled you to the point that you wouldn't be someone who now has three books under your belt? What are some of the self doubts that you have had to struggle with, and how have you handled that self doubt? How have you navigated? What are some ideas that you could share? What are some of the ways you've overcome?
All right. So I think one of the things that I keep encouraging myself with is, uh, I look at achieving goals this way. Uh, Two comparisons. One, if somebody who has the idea perfectly figured out in their mind, 100% figured out in their mind, versus somebody who has implemented the idea 70% successfully, I'll always credit the doer much higher than the thinker. And that's one thing I keep telling myself. and also just appreciate about other people. When I see somebody who's done something, as much as I may look at it and go like, I wish they could have done this differently, or this part they could have improved, I always give much credit to them because they actually went gone over and beyond thinking about it to actually implementing it. So that's something I've also encouraged myself with. That, you know what, it may not be 100% clear in my mind, it may not be perfect as I would have thought it would be, but I started it. And even with writing, it's easier to edit written content than to just sit there and say, I want to write a book that's a beautiful book about XYZ. It's easy to come back and say, you know what, I think these words I wrote yesterday were bad, let me scrap them out, let me rewrite that. So the first step is actually do just go ahead, just be a Nike fan, just do it. It's easy to work with something that's in existence, and see how well to improve it rather than just get bogged down by um thinking through it. And I think melancholics have that challenge a bit, where they have to get it perfectly figured out before they can engage. And that works to their advantage and sometimes to their disadvantage. So that's one thing that has helped me overcome that self-doubt. Second, like I said, is the consistency aspect. So here's the thing: the more you do something, the better you become at it. Um, if it's reading, you're a slow reader, you'll find that if you stay at it, you'll actually become better at it. So whether it's a task, whether it's a new discipline, learning, as you start off, it may look challenging, it may feel challenging, but when you have that in your mind, like the more you keep doing it, it's gonna get better. You're gonna build more muscle towards that. Uh, Eventually, you'll find you're taking on much higher tasks than you thought you could. But you have to unlock that through consistency. Like I found that even in my own book writing process, um, the writing is still challenging. It's still something that you have to pull yourself into. But now there's steps that have become easier because it's not the first time I'm doing it, and I've learned how to navigate through them along the way. So yeah, consistency again beats any self-doubt. And be a doer. Don't just sit there and think about that perfect idea and only engage when it's perfect. It's only gonna get perfect when you start doing it. Yeah.
That statement you closed with is just so powerful, Mindy. It's only going to get perfect when you start doing it. I think that's really, really critical for us to understand. So to overcome doubt, just do it, right? Just get started. Stop focusing on perfection, rather focus on progress. I really like what you said. I mean, in my own words, I summarized it this way: 70% execution is much better than 100% imagination. I love that idea that, yes, it's true. There are those who dream up things and they have it perfect in their mind. But if it's in the mind, it's really, in essence, of no use, right? You'd rather credit the person who does it. And maybe they didn't do it perfectly. Maybe it doesn't come out exactly how they want it, but they did it. And I really like that. And I like what you said because I find myself doing this sometimes, looking at something and thinking, well, could have looked a bit better. It could have been a little sharper. The words could have been clearer. So I'm really going to take this from you, this idea that every time I think that in my mind, I remind myself, but they did it. They did it. They actually got it done. And I think that's really critical. Before I come to you, ladies, I want to share something
Yeah,
that
just
I,
just
I, I
just a moment.
yes, yes,
Just
go ahead.
just a small addition.
Yes, go ahead.
I like how you've summarized it. Like 70% execution is much better than 100% imagination. I should probably send you an invoice for that for that well thought out line. But also, I just wanted to add something. I don't know whether you've ever been in a situation where let's say you're looking for somebody to do something for you, let's say a photographer, for instance, and people who put themselves out there, people who are available, end up getting the jobs, right? Why? Because they're out there, you can find them, as
Mm.
opposed to this perfect photographer who's thinking of this perfect project they'll one day perfectly execute. They won't get the jobs because they're not anywhere available. But somebody who's out there and who's doing it and still growing in the process, it's easier to find that person and give that person work because
Yeah.
they're available. So that's also an
Mm.
incentive for you to actually step out, whatever it is that you want to do, step out and start working on it. And whether it's
Yeah.
that vlog that you want to create, that YouTube channel, definitely the video 20 will be much better than video one. But you can't get video 20 quality
Without,
on the first
yeah.
try. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Video 20 quality comes at video 20, right? It's not at video one. And, this is something that I struggle with. So I think one of my biggest blockers is this desire for perfection. When I think of what blocks me, um, and my desire for perfection results in procrastination. And I remember when I wanted to start my podcast, I kept saying, I'll do it, I'll do it. I have to buy the perfect equipment. Okay, I need more time because I need to get a perfect mic and then I need to get the perfect this and the perfect that. And it took me forever to start until one day I just made the decision. I gave myself a deadline. I remember actually it was around my birthday. And I said, I'm going to start. And indeed, as I listened to the first podcast, indeed the quality now is a lot better than the quality then. But I got started, and I think that's really critical. Ladies, before I come to you, I just wanted to share something that I talk about in some of the training programs that we run. And it's just this experience that if you think about a 18th century naval ship, right? 18th century naval ship. Imagine they're sailing on the high seas when suddenly a pirate comes to view and they are going into battle. And so the sailors run out the guns and fire a blistering broadside, right? So they fire up the cannons and they begin to fire. None of the balls hit the pirate ship. Problem? No problem. Just reload and using the experience from the first shot, adjust and fire again. Now a few shots hit. And with each cycle, they get better. With each cycle, they're aiming the shots in the right direction. And soon enough, they are able to do away with the enemy. We need to apply the same kind of approach in our own lives. This idea that rather than seeking a perfect plan that paralyzes us, and I'm speaking from experience, paralyzes us in pursuit of perfection, let's ready, fire, and then aim. So rather than taking the ready, aim, fire approach, it's ready, fire, then aim. So the idea is we must jump in, fire, and then as you jump in, make adjustments as necessary. Find the better equipment for your blog. Do a bit more research for your blog. Get better editing software for your podcast, but get started. And this is actually the process of learning. And so, for me, in my experience, one of the ways that I know I have gotten in my way is this pursuit for perfection. But as Wendy says, get started. It's only going to get perfect when you start doing it. Lucy, I want to come to you. A key part of being able to really take time to get out of the way is actually taking time to reflect. Far too often we just go from one situation to another without stopping to reflect on where we are and how we've done. What are some of the ways that we can make sure that we take time to reflect at the end of the year as we start setting goals for the coming year?
Okay, some of the ways to reflect could just be noting down some of the milestones that you've achieved. And it's also in line with what the panelists have said. Celebrate
Mm,
your small wins and reflect also forward, because sometimes we have also expectations, whether we exceed them or we achieve them or we don't. So when you
mm,
also, I'm just saying, journal, write down for me it works really well because I'm able to go back and say, like for instance, a very good example, I have a journal that I wrote at the beginning of the year. I was not in a really good place, even mentally. And my goal was to align myself so that I'm able to pass wholeness in every aspect of my life, as a mom, as a career woman, and in the workplace. So I set myself out to seek help so that I'm able to be in a good place mentally, to silence the noises in my mind, and to, just to align myself mentally and emotionally so that I'm able
mm,
to show up for myself and for everyone I love, and for the work that I really love as well. And I can tell you, I have had an amazing year. This year has been amazing because I can look back and reflect that had I not taken those steps to first take care of my mental health, and you know also to put family close, spend more quality time with them. So for me, it's that journaling also is a way that you can assess yourself. This is how I feel, or even have a journal for work that these are the expectations that are expected of me and my team, and this is how we sit together. And I've also learned also to work very well collaboratively with people, and just as a leader also to know what kind of value are you adding to the team, and also what do you also draw in from other people. So those would be for me the biggest steps that I have taken to
mm,
just, grow myself. And as I reflect forward, I will look back at my notebook and say that, well, this I was able to do very well, and I'm happy, and be grateful even for those small wins I'm talking about. And as I plan forward, just
mm,
also, journal it down and sit down with my mentor. I talked about having a mentor because those people who keep you accountable, people who inspire you, also help you to become a better person. I don't like
mm,
working in isolation because I draw so much strength and knowledge and wisdom. And you see, panels like this, we can always come back and listen in. Maybe there's something I missed from the panel or even the previous sessions. Seek knowledge. Those are some of the ways you can reflect. Maybe some people are asking themselves on the viewers are asking themselves, where do I start? Start here. This
mm,
is an amazing platform with very conscious discussions from the past. I also took time to listen. I was just like, wow, this is amazing content. So also listen to amazing content and get some of the strategies. And also, if you need now further help, look for personalized help on how to uh, manage your finances, because we are talking about
mm,
being a whole human being. You may be making good money, but you don't know how to invest, you don't know how to to plan better for your life. So look for mentors, look for wise people who share this kind of knowledge and learn from it. Some of these resources are available here on YouTube, on LinkedIn. They are very good resources. Start there, and if you're able to pay maybe for a personalized kind of service, do that. So I would say write down your goals. There is so much power in words. What you utter, what you think, what you put down. I can say for sure that you look back and reflect, and you're like, wow, I made it. And also be gentle with yourself. Don't beat
mm,
yourself too hard. This life is not certain. COVID taught us to, to embrace life as it is, and that actually has really helped me also, because we so many changes took place, even how we relate with each other, and we even embraced using technology. Probably right now we'll be in some hotel, sitting on a panel. We started embracing technology.
yeah,
Joanne is in a
yeah,
different territory and she's able to join us. So we also embrace these new trends. If there's a new technology, I work in the media and tech industry, so you can appreciate and know how things change very fast, and you have to be really keen on learning. So be teachable, as I said earlier, and to learn from each other, collaborate. So I would say
mm,
those are some of the steps that I want to take in for next year. If I was not able to collaborate more, and there are opportunities to do
mm,
that, I want to do more. So as I plan my
mm,
year, I want to put down all those strategies down. I
mm,
want to be a better person in the workplace, to my friends, and
mm,
also just plan my time well, because I think we should also address time management, because they're talking about holding ourselves accountable. How do you manage your time? And there's a saying
mm,
that we all have 24 hours, but you find someone has that 8 to 5 shift, but they're able to achieve so much in a day, and in the same office and same environment. So avoid those distractions. Is social media distracting us?
mm,
There's our own mindsets distracting us. Probably I'm not doing it well. So how do you
mm,
stop? How do I also stop myself from thinking I'm not good enough? It's knowing that
mm,
every small, there's a reason I was hired there, because so those
mm,
are the strategies I've used, just to stop myself from thinking I'm not good enough. Why am I here?
mm,
And just celebrating
mm,
those little small milestones that I've achieved
mm.
in every aspect of my life.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Lucy. I think one of the things that's come through very, very loudly from all of my panelists is this idea of celebrating milestones. I think that's such a critical part of being able to really take cognizance of where we are and be kind to ourselves. Lucy, I think that one's a critical one. Sometimes we hold ourselves to an unrealistic standard, and I think that can also be a way that we block ourselves. Joanne, I'm going to come to you in a moment, but I want to stay with you, Lucy, for a little longer because we're talking about imposter syndrome, self doubt, and procrastination. And Muindi talked a little about how he's overcome self doubt. I'm wondering, Lucy, as you're sharing, if you've ever had to navigate procrastination, what tips you would give for someone who struggles with procrastination? How do you do all those things you've said? Because you've talked about a lot of things. You've talked about having a mentor. You've talked about stopping to reflect on the milestones. You've talked about investing in learning and growing yourself. Maybe one of the challenges someone has, and we have Helena here. Helena, you're very welcome. Who says procrastination? That's the thing that holds her back. So, what advice would you give someone who's struggling with procrastination, Lucy?
I'll probably look at what is what is causing you to procrastinate. Probably you know what you want to achieve, and probably how you want to do it, but you're also fighting with fear. Like, what if it's not good enough? So I would first want to investigate, and that's where that self-awareness of yourself, because how I procrastinate is very different from my colleague or my friend and my sister. So I would want to know, has this been a pattern throughout my career? Is it because I'm in a new job, or is it a new project that I'm not quite confident that I should have taken it up? So I would first investigate these feelings that are making me,
Mm,
want to hold back. And so I'll just personalize it and say, I have experienced this. And uh, the thing is that it was a big project, and I was like, oh my goodness, I don't want it to fail. So, and then I started now reflecting, what if it works? So I have taught myself also to do the positive what ifs, and and it worked well in the end, and I learned a lot along the way. And
mm,
teamwork. You also have to remember you're not alone. You have
mm,
people who are there to support you. If it's a project for the company is providing a team that you can work with. So don't fear to say, oh, I need help in this. I'm not so good at writing this kind of a report. So for me, teamwork and collaborating with people, and just being honest with myself that, Lucy, you can do it. Lucy, you are meant for greatness. I have to affirm myself. If I don't affirm myself, who will affirm me? So I start with that. I start with that mindset, just be mindful of my thoughts. And when those fears come, I don't let them sit and control who I am. I will just allow them to be there. I investigate them, and I use them positively. I will say, okay, I'm fearing that this will not go well. So how can I work around it and just present it? And yeah, those would be my takeouts. That don't don't fear losing, or don't fear showing your vulnerability.
mm.
That is strength enough when you put yourself out there and say, I need help, or could you show me how to do this? And you probably even will perfect better than the teacher.
Wow. Like I said, every time you guys share, you're just dropping wisdom. There's so much insights that is shared, and I agree with you 100%, Lucy, that when we procrastinate, the way to handle procrastination is to ask ourselves why. What is it that's causing me to procrastinate? And as you've said, a lot of procrastination is driven by fear. So you're afraid of the outcome, you're afraid of what could happen, and that then causes you not to take a step at all. And the thing about it is, when I don't move forward because I'm afraid that I may fail, I actually do end up failing because I've not moved forward. And so having that conversation with myself to determine what is causing me to procrastinate, digging deeper. I think that self-awareness you talk about is critical. And knowing, what is it that's causing. And then, like you say, Lucy, unpacking it further. So not, allowing yourself to get stuck in that emotion. And that's emotional intelligence 101. Identifying the information, acknowledging the information, the emotional information, unpacking the emotional information, and then making a determined way forward. So thank you. Thank you very much for sharing that. Joanna, I want to come to you. And as our resident HR expert, I want to ask you a question around organization. But before I do that, Muindi talked about navigating self doubt. Lucy's spoken about navigating procrastination. So there's the third one I'd like us to talk about, imposter syndrome. So how have you navigated? And I'm making an assumption here that you have navigated imposter syndrome. I think most of us have, more especially women. But yeah, how have you navigated, and what strategies would you share on how to deal with imposter syndrome? And then I will come to the question I want to ask you about organization.
Um, I would say for me, when it comes to imposter syndrome, it goes closely with still self-doubt, and how I've been able to navigate is just I've learned to write more than think in my head and let it sit there. So I sit
Mm,
down and I write and write and rewrite and write. So more or less trying to look, what are the pros, what are the cons, what are the pros, what
mm,
are the cons, and I keep on looking at what's the worst case scenario in every situation and how
mm,
will I be able to tackle. Because most of the time why we don't get out of it's the fear of the unknown. What if you don't know? Because if you know it, it means
mm,
you have a way to navigate through it. So
yeah.
somehow you have a way, or if you don't have a way, at least you know at some point you'll hit the bump. So question is, if I don't know it, why should I let it be a reason as to why I'm doubting myself? So for
Mm,
me, I would look at it. Do I know the pros? Do I know the cons? Have I navigated through everything? Do I know what lies ahead of me? And how can I be able to navigate everything without having any doubt in myself or feeling like there's something that is just standing in between. So
mm,
writing and rewriting and knows, and the moment you have more pros than the cons, it becomes easier for you to
yeah.
navigate and know no matter what comes my way, I should be able to hack this. Yeah.
Mm. I really like that. What you're talking about is an emotional intelligence competence that we call consequential thinking. Consequential
Mhm.
thinking is about being able to weigh up the pros and cons and use that information adequately, appropriately. And I think that's really important. One of the things that I do, in line with what you're saying, Joanne, is where you really stack the pros. So, right, you want to make as many things as possible that support the reason why you should go ahead. One of the things I do when I fight imposter syndrome is I look at the evidence, right? I look at the evidence because a lot of
Mhm.
times imposter syndrome is not based in reality. It's not based in reality. So when you look at the evidence, right, that actually I am capable. Why am I feeling as though I am not? Why am I listening to this voice? And I think it goes back to what you said, Lucy, and what you said, Muindi, around what you allow to kind of stay. And you said it so well, Joanne, that you don't allow it to kind of sit there. You write it down so that you can get it out. Because what what holds us hostage is when we allow ourselves to sit in that feeling. And I think this is critical. And that's really what emotional intelligence is. It's about recognizing what we're feeling. So we're not, ignoring it. Yes, I recognize, I feel afraid. I feel doubt. I don't think I'm able. All right, why am I feeling that way? Okay, how do I move forward? And I think that's really what emotional intelligence is all about, not getting stuck in what we're feeling. To those who are online, get ready. This is the time where you can ask questions of my panel. So if you do have any questions you would like to ask, please do share them in the comments, whether you're on LinkedIn or YouTube. Feel free to just type in the question that you will have, and we will come to your questions shortly. Joanne, let's put on the organizational hat again. Not all set goals are achieved at the end of the financial year. So, how does an organization handle missed goals while still motivating employees?
I love that question, Mocha. I love it because I'm sure for those of us who've been in the employment scene, this is the time of the year you dread because the very difficult conversations that are about to happen. It's just about the end of the year. And for me, it's tough. It's the bittersweet. It's the reality. What are we facing? It's the reality of what have we been saying beginning of the year, and now we are at the end of it. And the most important thing to ensure that we navigate through those difficult conversations, for me, it's the attitude you serve. And when I say the attitude you serve, is two things will happen in that table. Either the employee will be confident enough to face reality, or you will come with an attitude that is very defensive or very combative or very um, apathetic, such that it's either of those. So as a manager, you need to put your head up and navigate through it above all, such that are you having someone in your team who is defensive? Like for them, it's like, no, but I said beginning of the year, we can't achieve this. Nobody listened to me. So it's all about I was right, you were wrong? Or do you have that employee who will come and is very combative? I don't know what this organization is thinking, and I think we are on the wrong direction. It's like war for them. They're ready for war. They know it's that time. I need to defend my position, and they're coming packaged, ready for war. And then you have those who are pathetic. For them, it's like whatever. Let's just have this conversation and get over and done with. What we forget is you can't get over and done with if you've not addressed what the problem is, because something is wrong. And for me, if you're a manager, those are the people you need to be alarmed, because for them, it's like, do I even have the right person on my team? And so, as a manager, what you need to know is understand the temperature, understand the attitude that people are serving you at that table. Because the moment you're able to understand what is the attitude, it's you, the manager, to come down and give them an environment where they'll feel it's safe, like it's okay to fail. This is not cast on stone. It is okay to say to fail. It's not that we didn't see this coming. So chances are you already saw it coming. But question is, you also want to create an environment that will be able to enable everyone go home happy, everyone be very open about it. So the attitude you serve is very important. So as a manager, I would say number one, for you to have that conversation in a way that will motivate your employee. What is the attitude you're serving? Both for the employee, what is the attitude you're giving your manager? And for the manager, what is the attitude you're giving your employee? And then it's very important, number two, to come with a posture whereby you're embracing everyone and understanding people are feeling different at that point, and it's very important to know what their feeling is and give them an area where they feel they're comfortable being in that room, they're comfortable to have that conversation. And then thirdly, address the elephant in the room. Because now, if the temperature is right, why don't we address what is the elephant? And because the elephant of the room is we did not achieve our target. That is the core thing. And two questions that you must ask yourself is, why did we miss it? Why did we miss it? And when it comes to why did we miss it, more often than not, three things made us miss it. One, our personal. Yeah. And what are the personal issues that you were going through that made us not achieve? Maybe I was sick. Maybe my emotional well being was not okay. Maybe my mental status was not right. And so I just could not achieve those goals. Or maybe it's the strategy that the company has adopted, in that we made these are the goals, but are our goals solid? And when I say solid, is that were they airtight? Did we go back and ensure we are able to identify the pros and the cons? Or did we go back and made sure that we have these big goals? We've put them in such a way that they're easy to understand for the employees, and everyone takes ownership, and they can even narrow it down to their individual goals. And lastly, also, let's look at the business. Maybe there are things that were beyond us that made us not achieve. In that maybe the company went through a restructure that no one foresaw it coming. Maybe it was about the election that one way or the other affected the business. Maybe even the directors changed abruptly. With those are things that are beyond. But when you're having that conversation, dwell more on the personal and the strategy. Because when you dwell on both, the personal one will address the individual employee and how they were feeling and what they were addressing personally. And when it comes to the strategy of the business, you're understanding what happened in the business and how could we have learned better. And secondly, once you know the why did we miss it, so question comes, what are we going to do about it? What do you want to do different? Yeah. The question is, when it comes to this, you don't need all the answers. The employee, you can't have all the answers. Yeah, you're coming to the discussion on the table, but you're also tabling it out to your manager that I think these are some of the potential solutions. Doesn't mean they're right, doesn't mean they're wrong, but the fact that at least you're able to identify what are some of the issues, then that's already is a win on its own. And then what are the learning points? Yeah, what are the learning points from this experience? What have we learned from each other? Because personally, I would say some of the best conversations I've had was at a point of failure, because when you give the right environment for us to discuss failure, the employee becomes very open, your team member becomes very open to discussing many more. And they know, okay, even if I'm about to fail, my manager will not throw me under the bus, but more or less we'll have a decent conversation. So some of the best relationship I've had was from a point of failure. Like, this did not happen, but how do we navigate and make sure that we are able to overcome that? And then lastly is to coach, because remember, you failed because something did not go right somewhere. Now we know what the problem is, but are we able to now use coaching as a point of us elevating each other so that we're able to embrace each other failure earlier as opposed to later, and we're able to know how do we create a balance as well without feeling like we're being defensive or we're serving the wrong attitude. Yeah, so Mucha, I would say for me, that would be some of the key highlights on how to just navigate the difficult conversation. Yeah.
I love that. And one of the things that stood out for me from what you shared is this idea that we should talk about the elephant in the room. Far too often we don't, right? We just want to pretend it didn't happen. And yet this is a critical part. And I think this is the same even for our own personal goal setting. And it goes back to the comments that Lucy shared when we were talking about reflecting on the year that was, that we need to be able to have those tough conversations with ourselves as well, tough conversations around why we have not been able to achieve what we have been able to achieve, and so that we can learn about it. And I think this is where, again, this idea of being self aware becomes critical, because then I become aware of the fact that I have a tendency, for example, to procrastinate, or that I allow my self doubt to hold me captive. Or indeed, it may be imposter syndrome. So I think that's really critical. Thank you very much for sharing, Joanne. So this is the time when you ask questions. So please do share any questions you have. Just type them in the comments, and my able panel will respond to your questions. Also, if you are here and you haven't said hi, I've only heard greetings from a few of you, and I know there are many more online. please do take a moment to say hi. We always love to know who is on with us. We want to know if you're here for the first time. And we also love to know our regulars who are with us on a monthly basis. So please do just take a moment, type in the comments and say hello, even if you don't have a question, so that we can engage with you. So feel free to um, type in. Muindi, as we're waiting for a question, I think I have a question, and I think this would be interesting. Do men suffer from
Yeah, sure.
imposter syndrome, or is it
Sorry?
just a ladies' thing? Do men suffer from imposter syndrome, or is it just something that ladies suffer from? And now, let me ask you, now that you are here, is that
I
really something real for men?
Well, I think men do also suffer with imposter syndrome. Um, yes, it's something that men also suffer from. The thing, I don't know how to rate it. I don't know whether it's men put up a brave face and get it done. I don't know,
Mm,
but they do suffer from that as well. I think it's Lucy, or I had her talk about, you have to also remind yourself why you got the job in the first place. Like, you went through an interview process, they vetted you and they gave you the job. That in itself
mm,
should give you confidence when you hit
yeah.
times of that doubt that you might have. But yes, to answer your question, I believe men do also suffer from that as well. Yeah.
Thank you very much. And I think that, again, what you're sharing is this idea of evidence, right? Giving yourself the evidence. I think that's really critical, and I think that's why we ought to celebrate the milestones. If you recall, I think all of you talked about this idea of celebrating milestones in one of the answers you were giving in response to one of the questions. This idea that we must celebrate the milestones, and I think celebrating the milestones helps us to build up that evidence. So when that small voice tells you you can't do it, you can remind yourself, no, but I can. I have done it in the past. And if I've done it in the past, I can do it again. And for me as a believer, I also believe in holding close the promises of God. And I tell myself, I can do all things through Christ who gives me strength. So sometimes I feel in my own strength I'm not able, but I remind myself that in God's strength I am. And then also, one of the things I'm learning is the fact that the worst that can happen is a no. So I've got nothing to lose in trying, right? I've got nothing to lose in going forward. Do you have a question for my panel? Helena says, very insightful discussion here. As a contribution, I also think procrastination can stem from failing to plan and hence planning to fail. Thank you very much, Helena, for sharing. It's great to have you here. So you have about 3 minutes left. If you do have a question for my panel, we are going to be wrapping up the conversation soon. If you have a question, please do share it with us now so that my panel can respond to the questions you have. As I mentioned, I asked, Wendy, and he has confirmed in the affirmative that indeed men do suffer from imposter syndrome as well, but possibly just that idea that men must just kind of hold it together and move forward. Winnie, a big shout out to you as well. Thank you very much for being here today. We're happy to have you here. If you have a question, please do ask it now. We would be happy to hear from you. Let me come to you guys again and ask you really to share, and in a way, as we begin summarizing the conversation, we've been talking today about how we can possibly stand in our own way, and we've explored some of the ways that we do stand in our own way, and we've talked about how we can move forward, right? So each of you shared, Wendy, you shared when it comes to self-doubt. Lucy, you talked about procrastination, and Joanne, you talked about imposter syndrome. So as you just really start winding up the conversation, as successful people in your own fields, what are some of the secrets that you have used to ensure productivity? Because these blockers stop us from achieving our goals. So what have you done to ensure productivity, positivity, and success? what are some of the secrets that you would share? So, even if you are, as you summarize, repeating something we've already covered, that's okay. Muindi, let me start with you. What are the secrets that you have used to ensure that you are productive? Yeah, on one of the things you're going to say, Muindi. But yes, over to you.
All right. Yes, I think I'd say three things that have allowed me to achieve things that I've set for myself. One is having a big goal. I always love to look at it as a challenge. Um, or rather, I thrive better in challenges when I set a challenge for myself and I work towards achieving it. Like one of the challenges that I've set for myself is to write and publish a book every year. Um,
Wow.
and it was quite interesting. I sat through a talk by a writer that I really admire called Joanne that year, and she just started explaining how she's done that herself for the last 7 years. She's been able to write 7 titles, and so such a challenge keeps me on the toes. So at the start of the year, I know I have to achieve that goal, so I'm able to sit down and find a way to achieve that goal before December hits. Um, that's number one, setting a big goal for myself. The other thing is consistency. One of the things that you'll hear me repeat over and over again is
I
consistency.
knew it. I knew that one
You,
was going to be one of your three. I knew it, that consistency would be there.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
sure. That will definitely be there. I've written actually a book on how I ran every day for a whole year, minimum of 20 minutes a day, and that just translated into growing consistently. It's interesting. Like when I started that challenge, I had not purpose to write a book, but because of being able to understand how consistency works, that challenge translated into a book. I'll give more
Mm.
details about that. And then the last thing is to love what you do. Um, find a way to build passion into what you do. Find a way to just be excited about what you do, and look out for things that just fuel you and just give you a passion, and give you that extra edge to go ahead and achieve what you set yourself to do. So have a big goal, be consistent, and love what you do.
I love it. I love it. I love it. That last one is so critical. I mean, we've already spoken about being consistent, and I agree with you 100%. Consistency is critical. Um, a person who is consistent is going to go much further than a person who's brilliant, um, without the consistency. So, yes, I agree with you. Consistency is key. um, I like the last one you talked about, right? Love what you do, have some passion, because passion really drives. Ladies, before I come to you, let me just write a reflection that has been shared here. No question, Winnie says, but thanks for the session. Just an addition to failing is that it's subjective. So remember, each one of us is hardest on ourselves. So it's also important to speak positively about what we know we are capable of. The learning curve is always continuous, in my opinion. I love that. I think that's so true. Thank you very much for sharing, Winnie. And the reality is that failure is not the end, right? It's a lesson we can learn. And indeed, if we're not willing to fail, it's going to be very hard for us to achieve anything. So thank you very much, Muindi, for sharing. If you would like to uh, get Muindi's book, there are the details. The book is called Day 365, Finding My Way in Every Run. You can get your copy for $9.99. You buy that via M-Pesa. The details are there for you to get a copy. So thank you very much, Muindi, for that. Joanne, let me come to you. Same question I asked Muindi. As someone who's successful in what you do, what are some of the secrets that you have used to ensure productivity, positive, positivity, and ultimately success?
Okay, so for me, I would say how I look at it is I've divided that into different segments. So when it comes to productivity, myself, I invest a lot in myself. And when I say invest a lot in myself, I'm talking about physically, mentally, emotionally. So physically is just making sure I'm taking good care of myself. When it comes to mentally, making sure that am I okay? Do I always have my mental check? And do I also have people who alert me when I'm going off? Because you could be going off and you're the last person to realize it, but someone can say, "Hey, what's up? It seems something is not right with you." So I know people who are very sensitive and close to me and keep me on check. Like whenever they feel I'm going off when it comes, especially on the mental, because it's one thing we Africans are good at suppressing. Like someone would ask you, "How are you doing?" "I'm good." But you know, deep down, you're crashing. So that one person who holds me accountable in terms of my mental being, because your mental is everything. The moment it crashes, trust me, whether you like it or not, everything else within you crashes. So for me to be productive, my mental status is everything. And there's someone dedicated to make sure that they are keeping me in check when it comes to my mental well-being. When it comes to positivity, some of the secrets that have worked for me is knowing my worth. Like I will know when it's time to bounce, and I will know when it's time to stay, and I will not take nonsense. That's a me thing. Like I know what I'm worth, and I know when to go down and when it's time for me to bounce. And so I would say for some of you, maybe you're in a job and you feel like you're getting suppressed. Question is, do you think it's time for change? And what's stopping you from the change? What do you need to do differently? And do you know your worth? And lastly, I would say for me to be able to succeed, one of the hacks that have come in handy is being in circles of people who are better than me. You can't be doing the same thing and hoping for a different result. That's insanity. So, who are the people you're keeping in your circle? Are they people you can look up to? And how are they building you as a person? Because the only way you'll be better than yesterday is if you have something challenging enough to take you to that place. So, do you have people who you're looking up to? And how are they holding you accountable towards your success? Who are your mentors and who are the people in your circle? So, it's a new year. If you feel I've been in the same circle, all you do is gossip and nonsense, it's time to get someone who is different in that group. And it's time to just think of who, and you'll be surprised. Some of the people are very close to you, but you've never looked at them like, this is someone I could learn something from them. Maybe you've just looked at them like, this is my party guy. But what if your party guy is so good that you could you could bring out your creativity at it? That is something new you're doing. That's something that would help you somewhere else. Yeah, maybe in your personal life, but they just have to be better than who you are. That's the bottom line. So, and my life meant, I would say my mantra has been, don't let your failure become your kryptonite. Just because you failed, that should not be your dwelling place. Yeah, that's it, Mocha. You're on mute?
I should say, preach it. Your failure should not be your dwelling place. Wow. How powerful is that? Thank you. Thank you very much, Joanne. Lucy, over to
Which are you
you.
still on
My
mute,
goodness,
or is
how
it
time.
me?
No, I'm unmuted. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. No, I
Yes,
can
can
be
hear
heard,
her very
Joanne.
well.
Yeah. So, Lucy, last but not least, you will close us out with your strategies for success.
I will start with positivity. How I stay positive in a sometimes a very negative world is, so I try to intentionally block out avenues of news that will obviously affect my, my mood, my energy, because sometimes you just need to be in a certain
Mm,
zone. And when it's unavoidable, then the best thing is
mm-hmm,
to learn coping strategies that work for me. Yeah, so
mm-hmm,
what I do, from previous sessions, we've talked about mindfulness. And so that's how I start my day: mindfulness, meditation, quiet time, and being very reflective and very compassionate to myself. So that's how I maintain my positivity. I speak life to myself. I speak life to
Mm,
everybody. I speak life to this session because it's gonna
mm,
change life. So wherever I go, I also want to speak life and just bring out that energy and positive mindset, positive thoughts, and positive ideas,
mm,
and also
mm.
learn to cope with if things don't fail, then what do we do about that? So for me, that's how I maintain my positivity. And for productivity, as I said earlier, I try to set measurable goals for me because sometimes there's so much to do in different aspects, and I aim to just be whole in every aspect of my life. So for productivity, I'll just set measurable goals that I know are achievable, and I celebrate myself. I will pat myself on the back, and I will not focus on what didn't work because it didn't work. So whatever worked, yes, it's a win. And success, I think for me, if I measure it based on how I had set my goals. So I know I am meant for greatness. And so success for me is if I am able to achieve what I had set to do and learn from it, because there's so much more that success comes with. Am I also able to teach another person, pass this forward? Because we are not an island. This life is also how many lives am I able to impact by even just speaking a word or just encouraging someone, maybe take this course. So being all rounded and being a wholesome human being is what for me success is. You're successful in your job and people learn from you. You're also teachable. You always seek knowledge, and yeah, you pass that wholeness to other people. So that's for me, that is success, and that's how I sum it up.
Fantastic. Oh my, I can't believe that our time is up. Thank you so much to my panel for the amazing insights that we have learned. So let me share my parting shots from the three of you. Muindi, my biggest takeaway from you today has been around consistency. Consistency is key. Just do it is the other, um, parting shot that I have from you. And I think that when you think about being consistent, it does mean just do it, right? Just consistently do it and you will get better. 70% executed is better than 100% imagined. So that's the lesson I've learned from you. Joanne, from you, I've learned that it's important to know your worth. You fight back imposter syndrome and self doubt by knowing your worth and reminding yourself of what you have achieved. And you all talked about this idea of celebrating the milestones. I think the more we celebrate, the more we can fight back that little voice that says otherwise. Also, Joanne, you talked about being in circles of people who will build you up and hold you accountable. There is that saying, show me your friends and I'll show you who you are. So, who are those friends? Are you with people who are encouraging you, who are pushing you, who are stretching you? And the last thing I really liked you said was, don't let your failure become your dwelling place. And then, Lucy, my takeaways from you: be positive, be intentional about blocking out the negativity. I love that. Speak life into your circumstances. And I really like what you said, Lucy. Have clarity on what success actually is, right? So, what are you defining as success? Because that will determine what measure you feel you have achieved. So, there you have it, some amazing insights from yet another amazing panel. A big thank you, Joanne. It's been great to have you. Thank you for waking up so early to be here. Lucy, thank you very much to you too. And Wendy, thank you so much for joining us. A big thank you to my panel today who have been awesome. So I'm going to say goodbye to you all. Don't forget you can get Wendy's book. The details are on the comments. So thank you very much. Goodbye, Lucy. Thank you very much. Goodbye, Wendy. And thank you very much. Goodbye, Joanne. There you have it. What a fabulous session yet again. Thank you so much for joining us. This is the last of the EQ Lunch and Learn for this year. Our next EQ Lunch and Learn will be next year in January. And as always, we will have a topic that will get you started in the year 2023. So join us again in January as we continue with this series. As always, you provide the lunch and we provide the learning. So thank you very much for joining us today. And it is a goodbye from me. Enjoy the rest of your day.